We are slaying monsters.
Don't let the ghosts and the ghouls disturb you, darling.
If ghosts really do travel through water or are connected to water, and you took that water and you used it to make Jell-O, would the ghosts then be stuck inside the Jell-O?
You'd have ghost Jell-O.
If you ate the Jell-O, then the ghost would be possessing you.
I mean, I don't know. You know,
It's just logic, people.
Yeah, we're following science.
I mean, possession, it's funny because, like, possession does tend to happen through your mouth, through like, your open mouth, right?
Is that true?
Well...
Or is that the theory of possession?
Well,
I don't believe in possession. I just want to clear that for the record.
It was part of the Buddha mythology. Actually, now that I'm remembering it, don't Dybbuk's possess you through your toes? Dybbuk's either possess you through your toes or come out through your toes. I can't remember which one.
Yeah, it's something like that.
Dybbuk's the Jewish evil spirit. Katie, you familiar with the Dybbuk box? The Dybbuk box.
No, the Dybbuk box. I've heard of that. Okay, but I don't know why.
Yeah, haunted.
Ghost Adventures, that's why.
Apparently there are like 10 of them or 9. There's probably it's probably not 10 because 10 isn't like a magical number. There's probably like 9 of them or something. These boxes that allegedly contain spirits. Although now everybody's gotten in on that on eBay, and you can go on eBay and spend like $50 on your own personal wax sealed Dybbuk box if you want. But
to learn more, you should just go to our episodes on the Dybbuk box.
Yes. Yeah, we did a 3-part series on the Dybbuk box. It's really great. Yeah. But yeah, I'm pretty sure Dybbuks possess you through your toes, but I don't know. Normally you don't hear about people actually ingesting ghosts.
I think you can, though, and I think there needs to be a show about it. Like, you haunt an object, you haunt a bag of Doritos, like you get the Doritos to be haunted, and then you eat them. And it's two things. You get possessed, which is fun, and you can get evidence on that, and you get to eat Doritos. You have a really good excuse to eat an entire bag of Doritos. So everybody wins until you diarrhea the Doritos out.
Right, and that's how you exorcise the ghost.
And then you have a toilet ghost.
And then it's back in the water, and then the whole thing is connected.
All continues again. Right? That's the circle of afterlife.
Yeah, then you're just reenacting Casper, the friendly ghost, where they haunt the toilet.
Oh, I thought...
Or am I thinking of...
Are you talking Moaning Myrtle?
I could be thinking of Moaning Myrtle, or I could be thinking of Ghostbusters.
Oh,
There's
maybe.
some ghost in a toilet.
Oh, I thought there was a part in Casper where they shit Casper into a toilet.
Yeah, that's the 90s in the 90s movie with... Christina Ricci.
And Devon Sawa.
And Devon Sawa, exactly.
I watched it on a plane, kind of recently, and it held up. I was glad.
That's awesome. I have to see that again. I loved that. I love that movie. Anyway, wow, we are way off topic. Who are we? We are slaying monsters. We got Maddie J across the table.
Hey.
And we got Katie.
Hello.
And I'm EJ, and we are going to talk about what happened in May.
You make it sound so ominous.
I know.
Jell-O happened in May.
Yeah, Jell-O happens every day.
There are no news items involving Jell-O.
Yeah, actually.
This is our Fortean Roundup. This is where we talk about all the best Fortean supernatural, paranormal, cryptid, alien news in May, and there's a lot. I think the only thing we're missing is Bigfoot. There was no Bigfoot in May. But yeah, I think everything else is going to feature here. So yeah, you want to get into it?
Surely.
Well, all right. Our top story this month was not going to be this. Our top story was going to be a UFO story, but that story got bumped for this, which I now think is our top story, because Annabelle the doll might have burned down a building. This is so wild. So earlier this month, the Nottoway Plantation Mansion burned down. That was a historic residence in White Castle, Louisiana, built by slave labor. The mansion originally belonged to sugarcane and cotton magnate John Randolph. Randolph himself was a pretty particular piece of shit. He poured money into the Confederacy during the Civil War. He fled with his enslaved workers when the fighting got to Louisiana. And after the Confederates lost, he forced 53 of his enslaved workers to continue to work for him, now as low-paid laborers. And then after his death, the plantation and the mansion changed hands, got foreclosed upon, a century intervened, and eventually it became a resort, which it has been for the past 30 years, I think, something like that, 30 to 40 years. And that property is allegedly haunted. So there were reports of ghostly apparitions in the halls. I saw guests getting touched and pushed, furniture being moved around. One of the previous owners of the mansion, Odessa Owen, is supposed to haunt room 14 where she died. And they also say that people with long hair who stay in that room will have their hair touched or pulled. Now, we're talking about this place because on May 15th, a fire broke out that consumed basically the entire mansion. The owner, Dan Dias, I believe it's Dias, called it a, quote, total loss. The cause of the fire is still unknown.
Wow, still unknown, huh?
Yeah.
I read somewhere, I want to say the AP or something like that they think it was probably electrical. But I don't want to pour water on where we might be going with this, so.
Pour ghost water. Yeah. So they don't definitively know. They're not. It doesn't seem like it's arson. It seems like it's a natural cause of some kind. Yes. However, it quickly came out that everyone's favorite haunted doll, Annabelle, was visiting Louisiana. I'm sure that Annabelle needs no introduction to our listeners. She's like the Madonna of haunted items.
Mm-hmm. One name only.
Yes. Yes.
She is a Raggedy Ann doll, supposedly inhabited by the spirit of a dead girl named Annabelle, who is very malicious, extremely dangerous, so dangerous that Ed and Lorraine Warren kept her locked away in their haunted museum basement. She's now owned by Tony Spira of the New England Psychic Research Center, but sometimes he takes her out for special appearances. So she's been featured on a bunch of these shows, and he always brings her. I love it because he brings her in this like special case, and then there's this whole ritual involved with taking her out and like handing her to someone, and people always talk about how much power the doll has when you hold her and all that good shit.
What a bunch of horse shit.
I know. No, it's so wild because they're like, she's so dangerous. She has to live in this case, and he like wears gloves. I was reading about it. Like he wears gloves that have crosses on them to handle her. But then he's just like handing her to randos who like want to touch her. It's like, if you like really believed all this shit, you wouldn't just be like, sure, hold this devil doll with your bare hands.
Also, can we talk about why she's on tour? Because she's currently on tour to promote the latest Conjuring movie, Last Rites, which is coming out this fall. So if she was really that dangerous, would you actually take her on a tour for like a movie promotion? That's crazy, dude.
That's like putting a collar on a T-Rex and walking it around the United States to promote Jurassic Park 4.
Right.
Be like, it'll be fine. This is going to go great.
It's good. Don't worry about it.
Little kid, you want to ride the T-Rex? It'll be okay.
Tony Spira took her to New Orleans, Louisiana, and she just happened to be there the day before Nottoway Mansion burned down. Now, for those keeping track, where she was at, the French Quarter, that's about 75 miles from the Nottoway plantation. But, I mean, I guess that's the range of Annabelle's powers because she burned down the mansion.
I mean, look, if a Bengal tiger's range is 20 miles, we're talking about Annabelle, okay?
Did I say 20 miles? I said 75 miles, right?
No. I'm saying... Okay. Analogy time.
Okay.
If a Bengal tiger's range is 20 miles,
Yeah.
We are talking about a creature of the earth, an animal, apex predator. Now we have Annabelle, a demon doll whose power has no end.
Sure.
75 miles is nothing to her. Okay?
Do you think that Annabelle went to the mansion and burned it down, or do you think she just has like mind powers and she psionically burned down the mansion? Or is it that she actually has like an aura of evil that radiates out from her?
I think Annabelle dressed up in electrical man uniform said, "Hey, I'm here to fix your electricity." Like, oh, there's nothing really wrong. Oh, well, you made an appointment for Saturday. You better get in here. Okay. So, Annabelle walks in with her little,
Bib
overalls
yeah.
in her toolkit, and she burns that motherfucker down because she hates plantations. This is what we know.
Yeah. I am imagining that she's like projecting a ball of energy, like launching it from her location to her intended target, like a guided ballistic missile or something.
Ooh, surface to surface. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
For sure.
That's how I picture it happening in my head.
I just
I
feel
like
like
that.
we're going full D&D at this point. Annabelle's like burning a level 4 spell slot to
Yeah.
cast Witch Bolt or
And she
something.
rolled a crit 20 because that was a full burn.
Full burn.
Yeah, she's the whole thing to the ground.
So I feel like before we get too ridiculous with Annabelle, I feel like we should mention the other thing that people are saying, all the memes were saying on the internet
Yes.
about why Nottoway burned down, which is that the ancestors, the black enslaved people who worked on Nottoway were like, fuck this, it's time to go. And they burned that shit to the ground, which no one was mad about. And
Right.
something that we should mention is that, well, Matt mentioned it earlier, Nottoway has been a resort for 30 years. And they just treat it like a fucking hotel. They're like, look at this beautiful place where you can have your wedding. And they don't talk about the history of what happened there at all. It's not even like, oh, we talk about it if that's what you've come here to learn about. But like, if you come here to also have your wedding, weirdly, you can do that too. It's like,
Weirdo.
no, this is just like a full on beautiful place that people are like, look at how beautiful it is. Never mind that enslaved people built it and like had no rights or freedoms. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's the other sort of like the universe gave it its comeuppance. Specifically, the people who were enslaved there gave it its comeuppance. That's the other internet rumor about why Nottoway burned down.
I like that one.
I like that more than Annabelle casting a firebolt from 75 miles away.
Yeah.
Because, yes, it is really fucked up. First off, the thing that got me is that it's fucked up that you bought that property, that piece of land, and then you turned it into a resort. So it's still making money in a way that doesn't honor the history that happened there. And that is really fucked up. If you had purchased the property and you had devoted even part of it to like, okay, this is going to go through the history of the plantation. It's going to go through the history of slavery in the South, and we're going to talk about the important shit that happened here. I can get that. I wouldn't have my wedding there, but I can get that. But you just kind of gloss over all of it. And EJ, I think you were telling me in interviews with the owner, Dan Dias, he still glosses over the atrocious history of the place.
Not only that, this is his quote. I take this position. We are non-racist people. I am a lawyer and my wife is a judge. We believe in equal opportunity rights for everyone, total equality and fairness. My wife and I had nothing to do with slavery, but we recognize the wrongness of it. He goes on to say, we are trying to make this a better place. We don't have any interest in left-wing radical stuff. We need to move forward on a positive note here, and we are not going to dwell on past racial injustice.
And I want to add to that. So the Whitney Plantation Museum, which is about maybe 40 miles. It is 40 miles, the AP, from Nottoway. They have really good history programs there about what happened at Whitney Plantation. And so they asked the executive director, Ashley Rogers, of the Whitney Plantation about, rebuilding it as like preserving history. And this was her quote: "It was a resort. I don't know that it being there or not being there has anything to do with how we preserve the history of slavery. They already weren't."
Hell yeah.
So, like, just as a counter of someone who is doing that work to this motherfucker that owns it being like, we should all just move on with our lives.
Yeah. It's not my fault. I didn't do slavery. Then we can just ignore slavery then? Like, it's totally cool. Like, what the fuck?
And I don't know, the whole thing is just so fucking weird, man. Like, Auschwitz is not a hotel. Like, you don't go to those places and stay there and get your picture taken there with, like, a big fucking smile on your face.
You shouldn't.
The way
Some
we
people
deal
do.
with that history in this country is so fucking weird.
It feels very easy to me to be like, yeah, that was really bad. We shouldn't have done that. Because, yes, I also didn't personally have anything to do with it. So what attachment do I have to be like, that was fucking terrible? Like,
Right. Yeah.
I don't understand when people are like, well, I didn't have anything to do with it, so I don't think we need to talk about it. That's the exact opposite. Like, you should have no problem casting judgment. You had nothing to do with it. The other part that annoyed me was his like reliance on the fact that him and his wife are judges and lawyers and are in the legal system. So therefore, they couldn't possibly be biased or have any problem with anything.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because that
was like,
never
okay,
happens. The American legal system is never biased in any way. All the people that go to prison are always 100% guilty.
Yeah. It's a really beautiful show of justice, personally. That's my opinion.
What, that it burned down?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good job,
Good
Ghosts. Good job, Annabelle. Whoever did it.
Whoever did it.
Faulty electrical
we're on
work.
board.
Yeah.
The official Slaying Monsters opinion.
Yeah.
I don't think Annabelle was responsible for burning the plantation down. It's the other Slaying Monsters opinion. Annabelle is just a doll, and the Warrens were complete and utter frauds. Mm-hmm. We can have a debate over whether... Oh man, I always want to say Elizabeth Warren.
Not her. We love you.
Not her. Elizabeth Warren has nothing to do with this story. I'm a little on the fence over whether Lorraine Warren was truly in on these grifts, or if she was just a little bit
If she was taken for a ride?
yeah, if she was taken for a ride.
Just like everybody else was by Ed? Yeah.
Ed was absolutely a grifter. Ed absolutely lied and made a whole bunch of shit up. He was not a good person at all. So I don't know. I don't know about Lorraine Warren, but together they created a whole fucking ghost demon mythology that was not real at all. I think that Annabelle is the perfect scapegoat for this paranormal shit that allegedly happens all the time. I mean, they're also trying to pin a New Orleans prison break on her too.
Yeah. Once again, she came in as a worker in her little overalls and toolkit. Well, the toilet needs a fixin', and she better get in there. And they did. They actually pulled a toilet out.
I saw a photo of this. It's the most wild fucking thing in the world.
Wait, is that what happened? The article
Yes.
I read did say, because I was going to say, well, the article did say the people who run the prison believe that no one could have escaped without inside help.
There
Who knows
was
if that's
inside
actually
help.
true?
Annabelle,
I think that
Annabelle
there
was the
was.
inside help.
I think people looked away and helped. Yeah.
They
Yeah.
dislodged a toilet? Is
They
that what happened?
ripped a toilet off the wall. It's like crazy. There's a hole like a gigantic hole behind this toilet that
So
they
it was
went
like some
through.
Shawshank Redemption shit. Like
Yeah.
they crawled out through the sewer pipes.
Yeah. It's just
Whoa.
missing the like, I don't know,
poster?
pinup poster over the thing. Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. I guess Annabelle has very strong opinions about the American prison system as well.
But it's so weird. The other thing, like another thing they attributed to it was like a truck blowing up in Texas. Like that's so random.
Yeah. Right.
I don't know. She's coming to Pennsylvania next.
Yeah. Yeah, in July, I think.
Yeah, she's coming to Gettysburg. So we'll let you know if any shit goes down here in Pennsylvania.
We will be waiting.
This happens.
I will just say that I think that's why this ghost stuff is so fun, though, because anything goes. Like, you can just make any shit up that you want. That rivers, that water can carry spirits, and that Annabelle made a truck explode in Texas and a plantation burned down. I mean, anything goes with this paranormal stuff, and it's endless fun.
Moving away from Annabelle, what was going to be our top story is this UFO thing. So, aliens, UFOs, and some new light on special access programs. So, a new whistleblower has come forward to speak out about disclosure. His name is Matthew Brown, and he is a former Navy policy advisor. Now, he first appeared on the Weaponized podcast with Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp, although we have actually known about him anonymously for much, much longer than that, because he was the author of the Immaculate Constellation Field Report. Now, you might remember this from last year. It was the report that Luis Elizondo submitted to Congress in November, the one that he actually talked about in front of a congressional panel. According to that report, the U.S. Department of Defense has been running a special access program focused on UAP crash retrievals. And allegedly, this program has been running for decades, most recently under the name Immaculate Constellation. Because if you follow the logic of this, these special access programs keep changing names. They'll have one name for a couple of years, and then the program will be quote unquote canceled, but then just restart under a separate name. That's the story that they tell about it. Brown himself claims that he has seen secret files on the Defense Department's internal network that contain like thousands of pictures and videos of UAPs. And that also would confirm claims that Elizondo made before Congress last year that the government is hiding and allegedly reverse engineering crafts of unknown origin. And if you want to really get crazy with it, that the government also has, quote, non-human biologics, or in layman's terms, alien bodies, or at least what everybody's calling alien bodies. Now, Brown claimed that he tried to disclose his findings through the proper governmental channels, but was told to just delete it. Coming forward now, he fears that his life may be in jeopardy. If this is all true, then this could be the catastrophic disclosure that everyone keeps talking about. But I want to focus on one really specific thing. Brown claimed that he found the Immaculate Constellation document in a file called Shriver. Now, that's a Space Force base in Colorado. That base controls U.S. satellites and ballistic missiles. But they also run war games. And when you first hear about this, it sounds like a bunch of the U.S. generals get together, like, late at night and play D&D together. But that's actually not that far off. Every year, the Shriver Space Force Base hosts very elaborate role-playing games designed to play out real-world scenarios, like potential scenarios that might happen with military top brass. And the idea here is that if you test out policies, you test out strategies in simulated environments, you're ready to implement them if and when something goes down in the real world that's like that. Even if it's not specifically like that, you already have your ways of communicating in place. You have the way information flows and your strategies laid out. Many military departments actually do this because it's a great way of training. And sometimes they have fun with it. So I found this thing called Conplan 8888, which is also called the Counter-Zombie Dominance from 2011. So this was a fictional training scenario played out in April of 2011 for junior officers in Joint Operations Planning. The Counter zombie dominance gave strategies for how to deal with a zombie outbreak. And it's fucking hilarious. They go so far as to classify these zombies using terms like pathologic zombies or PZs, evil magic zombies or EMZs, and my personal favorite, chicken zombies or CZs.
Aw, CZs.
And the report states that CZs sound ridiculous, but are, quote, the only proven class of zombie that actually exists.
Because of Mike the Headless Chicken, right?
Yeah, because if you cut a chicken's head off, they run around headless for a while.
As long as the brainstem is connected,
Sure.
I think.
Yeah. The report also states, quote, the students were assigned this completely fictitious scenario and directed to develop a written contingency plan. Using this fictitious scenario avoided concerns over the use of classified information, it resolved sensitivity to using real-world nations or scenarios, and it better engaged the students.
That makes sense.
Yeah, right? It makes total sense. They also wrote, members of a U.S. Stratcom component found out by accident that the hyperbole involved in writing a zombie survival plan actually provided a very useful and effective training tool. It does 3 things really well. 1, it prevents accidental leaking of classified information because we're talking about fantasy scenarios and you might not want to actually talk about your real world weapons or strategies. 2, it deflects any sensitivity regarding the scenario because now you're talking about zombies, not any particular country or people, organization. And 3, it makes the thing fun rather than just a bland training course that you sit through slack-jawed. So what happens if someone who doesn't know anything about these war games finds out about these war games? To be 100% clear, this is my theory. I don't have any evidence that this is the truth. But I believe that Immaculate Constellation was a war game scenario played out at Shriver Space Force Base, just like the counter-zombie dominance was. And I believe Matthew Brown found it after reading slide after slide after slide of like UAP craft retrieval protocol, all this. It became real. He believed it was real. That explains why they let him keep reading it. He accessed it over a dozen times, he says. And it's probably also why his superiors called it a joke and told him to delete it.
And is it the Shriver base?
I believe so, yeah.
So this is where they do simulations. This is where they play war games.
Yes, they do.
And he found this there.
He found it in a file labeled Shriver War Game.
What the hell?
Yeah.
I know this is a theory, but it literally says it.
Right.
What more do you need?
And doesn't it make sense? It's at a Space Force base. So this is exactly the type of thing that you would play out. You're not going to play out, ground assaults or something like that.
Yeah.
More the zombie thing.
Or what if the Kraken comes up out of the ocean?
Yeah, right.
Like,
it makes sense.
It makes
That's
sense.
the Navy,
Yes.
This is Space Force. You're going to do what happens if we recover alien technology.
Right.
And guess what? Maybe that alien technology wasn't meant to be alien technology.
Right.
Maybe that was like, what happens if we recover Russian technology?
Yes.
Or we shoot down a Chinese spy balloon?
And that's exactly what you're talking about. Let's make it more interesting. And you're the one that reminded me that where we all used to work, all 3 of us, our manager put together a zombie apocalypse scenario, what to do in a zombie apocalypse. Like a manual, and it allowed us to learn like the hierarchy and the...
It was in the handbook, yeah.
Yes, it was in our
Katie,
handbook.
do you remember this?
No, but that, oh my gosh, I don't want to say that anything about where we used to work, it was genius, but that's kind of genius to get people to actually read the handbook.
So yeah, I mean, there was a whole...
Very smart.
Like sort of flow chart where it was like, well, the last person who got hired is going to be sacrificed to the zombies so everybody else can get away. And then, basically, but it was, so what do we do when the zombie apocalypse breaks out? How do we get customers out of the store? Do we maybe choose to keep customers in the store if something's going on outside and it's safer for them inside? Like, and how do we handle all of these things? but framed in a zombie apocalypse scenario.
So people would actually read it.
Right.
That's so smart. I still never read it. I didn't even know it existed.
It might have happened before or after. I don't know.
I famously never got the handbook. They refused to send me a handbook.
Why?
I don't know.
cannot
They wanted
say
you to
that
die.
I ever got a handbook. I have no memory of ever being given a handbook. Yeah, well, I think that's really genius that our former manager did that. And I mean, it makes sense why you would do this in a training exercise because it's way more fun. But clearly this dude didn't know what he was looking at, and or maybe not clearly. I don't know. We're speculating, but I can understand why you might stumble upon a file if you have top secret clearance and you're kind of allowed to go wherever within certain systems. But if it's really true that the executive branch has been running these programs and manning them without congressional oversight, which is the accusation here, for 60 years, you probably wouldn't have this file just sitting on a shared server somewhere. I don't know. I'm of two minds because on the one hand, I'm like, it seems to me that no, this would be put away somewhere more secret if they even had these kind of files sitting around and they weren't just deleting them. But the other piece of it is this is why it's probably not true that there's been a 60-year cover-up, because people fuck up.
Yeah.
Too many people have to know about it. Too many people have to be secretive. Too many people have to lie. Too many people have to not mislabel files and put them on drives they're not supposed to be on.
You would think that if we really were recovering alien spacecrafts and we were having interviews with aliens and that type of shit, a picture of an alien would have ended up on top of a microwave in a break room somewhere because somebody was warming up their coffee and forgot about it. That's how people are,
And we have cell phones now. I just don't believe with how much everybody records everything all the time. I mean, you're probably going into a skiff, if let's just say this is real, you're probably going into a skiff. You probably have to give up your cell phone unless you're Pete Hegseth. Sorry, we can cut that out.
Nice.
I just feel like we would have seen something. I'm the same as you, Matt.
Yeah. And I think this is just further evidence that one of the big problems in the government that contributes to this is there are so many little operational committees and they tend not to talk to each other. And that intra-office communication doesn't happen as much as it should. So you end up with places like this place is running these war games, but they're not talking about the nature of the war games. Then somebody finds out about them who does not have any information on the nature of the war games, is perplexed by it, thinks it's real, and doesn't have anybody he can ask and say, what's going on here? Because everybody's like, I don't know. Never heard of it before.
I don't understand why, though, at this point, we've come this far in this process now with this guy. Why hasn't somebody said, yo, dude, it's a war game? Why do you think that is?
I don't know that I can answer that question. I mean, I know, so on the third, there were 3 separate interviews with him for Weaponized. On the third, he talked about being familiar with the war games, but he didn't believe that this was a war game.
Okay.
When was the file from? Do we know? Does he know?
2017. No, 2018.
Recent.
Okay. Because I was just thinking about when did Space Force come into existence? Because it was early. It hasn't been around for very long. But that could work.
Yeah. Well, and this is a fascinating little connection, too, because in 2017 was when the New York Times article came out, written by Leslie Kean, Robert Blumthal, that released the Tic Tac videos that now everybody knows about. And it was the beginning of this new age of disclosure. Mm-hmm. So this war game would have been run the very next year, the next summer, in fact, to run in June, which makes a lot of sense, A year later, Space Force is like, yo, we better do something that talks about this. So we are ready because now this is on the public's mind and we want to make sure that we're not caught blindsided. It makes perfect sense.
It does, yeah.
Even if they were running it as like real potential aliens, not even just as like an analogy for downed foreign like aircraft.
Yeah, and I'm sure that they did make photos and reports and stuff. I'm sure that there was somebody whose job was like, okay, you got to come up with the maps of these areas and the layout and the way the crafts look and all of this stuff. Make the backstory for it.
I have no idea. My reference here is real scientific. It's Parks and Rec, but in Parks and Rec they run like a bird flu scenario or something. Like their town gets chosen to be the ones to like run the bird flu, the like pandemic outbreak scenario. Yeah. And they have all that stuff. Like there's whole binders that exist of like all these documents that are made for the fake thing because you want it to be as realistic as possible of like what information would you need, what information would you have, like what information would you not have, like all that stuff.
I'm just so hung up on the fact that nobody is communicating to each other about this stuff.
Mm-hmm. It's been an ongoing problem with the government. And
you don't say.
Yeah.
I know this is a surprise to people.
Yes.
It's an ongoing problem in any organization, I feel like.
For sure. You reach a certain size and then all of a sudden the ship becomes really difficult to steer, right? Yeah. But I think in particular in the government, because there are so many special access programs and there is so much secrecy that's wrapped up in weapon development, testing, these new programs, espionage, all this shit. And some of that is classified to certain levels, but other levels have it. And, then you have a whole disinformation campaign that you are disseminating through channels to make sure that if things fall into Russian hands or Chinese hands or something like that, they won't know and the waters are muddied enough. This goes way beyond, but there's the dawn of Area 51 and Area 51 conspiracies is very famous. That there was this guy named, his name escapes me right now. But the originator of a lot of the Area 51 mythology came from a government agent who was specifically leaking that information to him. There's a whole documentary about this called The Mirage Men that talks about how they basically ruined this guy's life. It's really wild because they fed him false information because they didn't want what was really going on at Area 51 to come out, and what was going on was weapons testing.
So it's a bit of a disinformation thing, but it's also a bit of a miscalculation in what you found.
Right.
It's crazy though. It's like, why are we going this far with this story when we know, not us, but like, why are there hearings on this, and why is there such a hubbub over it when it's probably, like, let's think about Occam's razor here. Is it more likely that it's a war game that he found, or is it more likely that aliens did land and we hid the bodies and we hid the crafts? What's more likely?
Yeah. No, I mean, my theory is that, like, congressional people are also just people. And they also maybe think it's possible that we know about aliens, and they want to know if we know because they want to know personally.
Well, see, this is interesting, Katie. You say that because the other day I was like, Matt, I was literally like this little kid. I was like, Matt, why are people so dumb? Like, and I'm talking about, like, these are high level people with top security clearance, and they are supposedly highly educated. And they come across this thing, this war game manual, and think that it's real. And that's why I literally was like, why are you so educated and like so way smarter than me? Like, and that's not saying much, but like, I'm still saying, like, they're smart and they're making these mistakes. And not only them, but now Congress is making these mistakes. And it's just this snowball of idiocy. And I don't know where it ends and begins. And I'm just like, you people are in these positions of power and influence, and you're dumb.
I don't know that we have our best and brightest in Congress. Like,
No, it's
some
true,
of
we don't.
some of them are, and others
Yes.
are not. But I think
Well,
that we've like also talked a lot about on this show how you can be the best and the brightest in like one area and be easily misled in another area because none of
Very
us
true.
know everything. We only
Yeah.
know what we know.
And
It's
this is
very
why
true.
communication is very important. This is why working together is important. All the different branches, all the different like CIA, FBI, they all need to work together and share information and not be dicks.
Yes.
Because then horrible incidents will not happen, or we can stop things before they start. We need to talk to each other.
I mean, that's why we have DHS, I think, right? Was created after 9/11 because everyone was like, how do we miss this? But it turns out the FBI and the CIA like never talk to each other because they see themselves as like rival departments in like some way. And like, then on top of it, I think it's purposeful in some instances, right? For like this top secret stuff, you like don't want people to know because if it falls in the wrong hands, you want a shut-off valve where you can just be like, well, that person only knew up to this point. Cool.
I also think it's a way of testing leaks sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
You send out information that is obviously bogus. You wait to see where it comes out, and then you can say, okay, so this is where we have a problem. And now we can either deal with that problem or we can flood the channels with a bunch of bullshit information. And if something legit comes out, nobody's going to know it's real.
Right.
Because that's absolutely a counter-espionage strategy.
Yeah, and that could be what a lot of these disclosure people are doing right now. Like,
Yeah.
they could be disinformation agents that are leaking shit.
Yes. In fact, that's something where I'm very much on the fence about Luis Elizondo. And in fact, we can jump ahead a little bit to that news item because Luis Elizondo was featured in this. So last year, Luis Elizondo was actually talking in Philadelphia, and he showed a picture of what he claimed was an alien mothership, and it turned out it was just a reflection of a chandelier in a window. And just recently, while giving a congressional hearing on UAPs, Elizondo showed a picture of what he claimed was a gigantic circular craft hovering over a field in the western United States. And according to him, you can even see the shadow of the craft, which showed that it was like hovering off the ground. But it didn't take even a day. It was like hours before Reddit, of all places, found the source of the image. And it was a pair of irrigation circles created from center pivot irrigation. You see this sometimes. It's the big long beam with the sprinklers on it, and it spins like a fan, and it makes the circles. So these two irrigation circles were side by side, and they created the optical illusion that one was a darker shadow and the other was a hovering craft.
Yeah, I think just to add more specificity, when I read the article, I didn't know this, so it was interesting. It's like the reason one looks lighter and one looks darker is because like one is fallow and one is being planted. So it's like one is,
okay.
Yeah, so the darker one is like dirt, like I guess freshly plowed dirt or something like that. And the other one has stuff in it. And that's why they are different colors.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like it has something to do with crop rotation or something like that.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that makes sense then.
Yeah.
So this is kind of the same question, though. Why didn't Elizondo do even the most basic fact checking into this photograph, especially when Reddit debunked it in a matter of hours?
It's suspicious to me that he didn't. That's suspicious to me.
And this is the second time now.
Yeah.
You know? You would think that he would be on edge after the chandelier photograph and be like, oh man, I should really pay attention to what I'm showing. But he just threw this thing up and was like, oh, look, big, gigantic UFO.
Or he's drank too much of his own Kool-Aid.
I don't know. I don't know what to make of him at all, man. I mean,
I don't either.
he has a book that he's promoting, but he's also like going in front of Congress. If I was writing a fake UFO book, and I was just in it to make some money and get some headlines and stuff, I don't think I would go in front of Congress. I don't think I would agree to do that because that seems like there's a lot of legal repercussions associated with that then. So he's got to believe something, but everything he keeps talking about is so flawed. And I can't figure out what his deal is.
I mean, to me, he's either extremely dumb and foolish, or he is very savvy and being backed by certain entities that are promoting that he spreads disinformation.
There's a third possibility, too, which is that he is unknowingly being sent this information. And that's the leak theory that I was talking about before, that people are disseminating this information. It's going to Elizondo because he's credible. And they're trying to see, okay, if we do this, how far does the information go?
I mean, I guess, but like, I don't know. I mean, I didn't look further into like how Reddit came up with the fact that this was fake. Part of me wonders, did they just like fucking reverse Google image search it?
Yeah.
Like, that's something you can do. It's real easy. It still just speaks to like, he didn't even do that. Like, for me, that would be step one. If I thought that, I would at least just like drop it into Google image search and see what comes up, right?
I think the process is, it's a little bit more complicated, but not a whole lot. So what people do is they use AI to do geolocation searches. And so you can upload an image and then match it to Google satellite photos using AI, logging and whatever. I'm not crazy familiar with this process, but that's what it is. So you upload the image and you let AI scan through all of the Google satellite images and cross-match it that way. I mean, more complicated for me to do, potentially more complicated for Elizondo to do, but Elizondo is the type of person who should be doing this shit, or at least find somebody who can.
Yeah, it's surprising to me that a man like him with a book out and everything like this, doesn't have a team of people, friends that could help him.
And he does, because this is the other part of this news item I wanted to talk about. He's a member of the UAP Disclosure Fund, which is a publicly funded nonprofit. And it was announced shortly after this debacle with this photo that he's leaving the UAP Disclosure Fund. I think that isn't really related to the photo. I think it's related to him being appointed to a UAP task force with Anna Paulina Luna. But it means that at some point, that disclosure fund could have been in charge of reverse image searching this photo and figuring out what was actually going on, but they didn't.
Why didn't they?
I don't know. See, that's the thing. And that's why I think it's really important to be skeptical of Elizondo, because I don't know what his agenda is, and he's spreading misinformation.
He's been doing it for so long. He's either been playing a really long con, like he's a total grifter, or he has been a plant, like maybe not knowingly, for a long time, where people have been feeding him information to, divert attention, or it like switched at some point. Like maybe he did really think it was real and it was really stuff he had seen just by himself. No one's giving him information. And then like now he's like, well, I have this book coming out and like now I'm just like getting money. Now I'm just here to make money and I don't really care. Like I don't know. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
It's a bold move to be a grifter and be doing this, though.
In front of Congress.
Yes.
You took an oath. Like, not that I think anyone's going to be putting you in jail for holding up a fake alien photo after you swore to tell the truth or whatever, because I don't think they care that much. But, like, we've got bigger fish to fry. I just, like, why are you doing that?
Let's jump to this next story. This UFO crash retrieval story that's coming out of, EJ, you can probably help me out with this, but Buga?
Where's this?
Buga, Colombia? In my head, I was saying Buga, but I feel like that's absolutely
never
wrong.
What it would be.
Okay, Buga. Yes.
No.
Matt, the way that your head decides words are pronounced is really
this is what happens when you grow up in Pennsylvania Dutch country.
Yeah. Katie, I being married to a Pennsylvania Dutch boy and encountering his many family members who I love, It's wildly and endlessly entertaining to listen to the pronunciations, and it gets worse the older the generations are. It's very very entertaining.
So anyway, Buga, Colombia. Allegedly in March, a spherical object, a little bit bigger than a basketball, was sighted in the skies. Witnesses claim that it zigzagged through the air. Video, however, shows it moving in a straight line. Then on March 2nd, a man named David Velez El Poltro came into possession of this object. He claimed that he got it from someone named Jose, who found it in the woods. And allegedly, Jose fell sick for days after touching it. However, that doesn't seem to have affected David, who was photographed just holding it like a regular item. So
that was many questions about this, but like that was one of my first ones. Is I was like, oh, he fell sick, and I'm like, well, what the fuck is this dude doing? Just chilling,
like the Annabelle
holding
thing.
It. Like, I had to double check. I was like, is this a picture of the guy fell sick? No, it's a different guy. Okay.
This reminds me of the story in the UK when the guys touched the they touched the alien spaceship.
Oh yeah.
And first they got visions, but didn't they get sick touching it too?
That's I think you're talking about Rendlesham.
Oh
yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Is that true? Did they get sick touching that, or was it just visions? There was something I have in my memory of guys touching something and getting sick.
They got visions. There might have been sickness associated with Rendlesham, like
okay.
Afterward. There was a different story about a guy. This one, I don't really recall this very well, but he touched a UFO and he got burned on the stomach, and he had a burn that was like a grid shape.
Oh, maybe that's what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Sorry,
where
continue.
That happened.
Okay.
Anyway, okay. Allegedly, this sphere is gray, shiny, and it has this design on it that seems like it's some kind of writing or code. Allegedly, it's cold to the touch, but the inside is warm, although I don't know how they figured out that the inside was warm, because I don't think that they actually opened the sphere. So once he got his hands on it, Velez El Poltro did the most logical thing you can think of. He poured water on it. The water started to smoke and vaporize, and that was sort of the extent of his scientific test, so he started looking for someone who could run more experiments, which led him to Jaime Maussan. Now, way back in 2023, he made headlines with his alien mummies, trying to pass off taxidermized corpses as alien bodies. And these mummies still pop up in the news occasionally. Katie, I'm not sure if you're familiar with these alien mummies or not.
No, but cool.
So, a quick recap on Jaime Maussan. He's been circling ufology for probably a little over a decade. He first appeared on the scene in 2007 with this little taxidermized gray alien that he claimed was caught in a trap. It was not. It didn't take very long for scientists to conclude that it was actually just a hairless marmoset. But that didn't stop him, because Maussan appeared in 2015 with slides of a blurry, desiccated alien body sitting on a glass shelf. He claimed that these were taken in Area 51, but they were very quickly discovered to be an exhibit of a mummy on display at Mesa Verde National Park in Colorado. In 2017, Maussan popped up again, this time with a full-sized, preserved alien body. And this finding accompanied x-rays that showed the body had bones in its hands and it had eggs in its guts. And he claimed that the aliens laid eggs like a chicken. The Peruvian government examined the body and concluded that it was, according to Live Science, a mix of looted body parts. Some of the bones were inserted upside down, and the hand bones made absolutely no anatomical sense. They were just kind of crammed into the hands like that. And then in 2013, Maussan brought more bodies to the discussion with same issues, same features. These are tridactyl. They only have 3 fingers, whatever. The skull of these bodies looks like it's from a llama.
Is he a weird grave robber? Like, what is he doing? Is he making these? That's so gross.
I don't know if he's making them. He gets them somehow. It's very strange. And it seems like it should be illegal, because some of them are human, like they're human bones, but then they're also animal bones. Like I said, the skull is basically a llama's skull. It even has the same like cracks. I guess they're not cracks, but whatever the like joints in the skull are all match up. Like the whole thing is very obviously fake. But he's the guy who ends up with his hands on this sphere, and he handpicked scientists who studied it and claimed that they can't find any weld points, they can't find any assemblings or markers. And they also claim that they have translated the code, and it reads, "The origin of birth through unity and energy in the cycle of transformation, meeting point of unity, expansion, and consciousness, individual consciousness."
Blah, 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 blah.
Exactly. I also would like to say that they said they cracked the code using AI. And I'm like, that sounds like technological gibberish. Like people are going to be like, oh yeah, AI could do it. AI doesn't know anything about made up languages that it doesn't know because it only knows things that we feed it. So it's not going to be able to figure out what a made up language says, or language that is not a part of the human set of knowledge. What are you talking about?
Absolutely. So, and there's another layer to this whole thing that's really weird, because the code uses a bunch of letters from what is an alphabet that was created by this person named Margaret Gell, Gel, Margaret Gell, who developed an alphabet that they created essentially just for fun as a thing to do. And that alphabet got picked up and used on a discovered UAP craft way back in the early 2000s, and has sort of been circling UAPs, UFOs ever since. Even the writing is not actual alien writing. I don't know what alien writing would be, but at least some of the characters from this alien writing are actually from an existing alphabet created by someone on Earth.
So maybe AI would be able to translate it because it's using that alphabet. But also, if it's using that alphabet, I'm sure this Musan guy knows about it and could translate it himself.
Yes.
Yeah. This guy, his name is El Postro.
Yeah.
I wonder if he knew Jaime to begin with and he's working with him. You know what I mean? If Jaime was like, oh yeah, like just claim that you found this ball and we'll make up a guy named Jose. Jose, right?
Jose.
And then it'll seem like it came to you when really we worked together. I mean, I don't want to claim anything that's not true.
No, it's a very common thing that Jaime Maussan does, is that he has positioned himself. You remember when we talked about Doc Shields and how very rarely did Doc Shields actually do something himself? Everything was kind of like, oh, these girls came to me and told me about Owlman because I am this monster hunter, right?
That's exactly what I was thinking of.
Yeah, Jaime Maussan is very much in that same position.
Yes.
Anything he brings to light is always, oh, there was a farmer who found this little gray alien. Oh, this guy brought me slides from Area 51. He's never the one who's presenting them. He's always like, oh, these were found and brought to me.
He's the expert. He's the expert in every story.
Right. It does that very well because all of a sudden you're positioning yourself as this person that everybody brings this esoteric shit to. And then also you don't need to make up where it came from. And you don't need to worry about like a verifiable story. You're just like, I don't know, somebody gave it to me.
Yeah. And then it wasn't one of the arguments as well, the validity of the object being that it has no apparent areas of fusion or areas where it came together. It's just one cylindrical, smooth.
Yeah, apparently
sphere.
there are no weld points on it.
So that means that it's likely truthfully an alien object or something.
That's what they say, yes. But there are ways to weld things without visible weld marks.
Well, I'll tell you what. My exercise ball has no visible connections. And I'm beginning to think it could be alien as well.
Is it cold on the outside but hot on the inside?
It's hot on the outside and cold on the inside.
Whoa.
Yeah. I'm going to send it to Jaime and see what he has to say.
There you should. watched this YouTube couple. They sail around the world and they're building a boat. They're building a completely aluminum catamaran. They sand the weld points out. They weld lots of time. They've welded tons of things on this boat, but like on the long sides of it where you don't want to see seams, they sand them out. And then you can't see it at all. It looks like it was never welded at all. It's just one like solid piece.
I didn't know that was what they did. That's so cool.
Yeah. So like the fact that something you can't see the weld points, like I know, like, and I'm not an expert in welding. So like maybe it's possible that someone who was like, if you look at it under a certain light or something, you can see where the pieces were welded together. Like maybe there's a way to determine that even if it like visually doesn't look like that. Like, I don't know. So like, come for me if that's true. But like, I just don't think that it's like that big of a deal that the object doesn't have any weld points. Like,
I know that there's also a process called cold welding, which involves vacuum welding things together, and so you can weld flat things, I believe, with no or very little visible seal to them. SlayingMonstersPodcast@gmail.com. Any welders out there?
Please let us know. But the point is that I just feel like that's a very dumb thing to be like, there's no earthly way somebody could have just made a silver ball. Well, obviously you made it, so there is some way that it got made.
What about like ball bearings? Just like there are ways to do this shit.
Buckyballs.
Yeah.
How did we get this technology in the first place to weld though? I mean, if it wasn't for the aliens coming down and teaching the ancient Egyptians how to weld metal, we wouldn't have this knowledge.
Yeah.
Thank you, EJ.
You're welcome.
Truth.
Thank you. Just dropping some truth. Walking away.
This is also just making me think, I mean, it would be really heavy and it doesn't look that heavy from the way the guy is holding it. But like, if it was actually like, couldn't you just like pour it into a mold? Wouldn't that create
I would assume so.
Complete circular.
Yeah.
Yeah. The moral of the story is when you see Jaime Maussan's name, do not trust anything that comes after it. So in more realistic news, archaeologists have found a cave painting that shows a strange animal. A cave painting in South Africa shows what they are calling a horned serpent. And this is really weird because there's no animal like that in the region, and there wasn't when the mural was painted by the Sand People 200 years ago. So the researchers are calling it a horned serpent, which makes it seem like it's a snake with horns. That's what I thought of right away. But in truth, it actually looks more like a walrus with a snake's body. So it's like a super long, kind of chubby snake body with big walrus fangs, like tusks maybe. It's not sinewy like snakes, it's bulbous. And this left archaeologists obviously scratching their heads. They've concluded that the animal was likely a rain animal, something the Sand People painted as part of a ceremony invoking rain. They believe that the animal was inspired by the Dicynodont fossils. I believe that's how you pronounce that, Dicynodont. Now, Dicynodonts were Jurassic dinosaurs with sort of pig-like bodies and two very distinct tusks. So they look quite a bit like this horned serpent. Archaeologists believe that the Sand People found a partial skeleton of a Dicynodont and based their horned serpent mural off of it.
Oh.
That's so fucking cool to me.
Isn't that cool?
That is cool.
Yeah.
It's so cool, and I like had never thought about it before, but like obviously early humans were also discovering dinosaur bones.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because they've been around, but like, what the fuck did they think they were? Like, they look magical to us and we know what they are.
Yeah. I wonder if that's how the dragon idea came about.
That's one of the suspicions, actually.
Oh, that's smart.
Because if you find a fucking Allosaurus skull, you're like, oh, wow, this is obviously a dragon. This is not like any other animal that we've ever seen before. Also, elephant skulls, they claim might have been an inspiration for the Cyclops, because the section where the trunk comes out looks like a big eye socket. And so if you look at an elephant skull, you can say like, oh, wow, it looks like there's one gigantic eye in it.
So cool.
Yeah. What I think is so cool about this is that Dicynodonts weren't even entered into the fossil record until 10 years or so after the mural was painted, which means that the Sand People may have actually found they might have been the first ones to find this dinosaur.
I also read that the ceremonies evoked known extinct animals to help the people encourage the gods to send rain. So they were likely they were very aware that obviously the animal was not walking around. But I think in a lot of cultures, we ask our ancestors for help for certain things. And so it's an interesting thing to ask animal ancestors for things.
I
like that.
Did they know that those animals were extinct?
Well, apparently it was, according to the article, it is something that they often did. Like they used extinct animals to encourage the gods to send rain.
I guess you can tell, like, if you dig up a fresh bone and then you dig up a ancient dinosaur bone, you can tell that the ancient dinosaur bone is older, right? So
yes, especially though if the context is there, especially
Right.
if you're not finding one femur, but you're finding an entire or a half skeleton,
Right.
and you can say, oh, well, I've seen plenty of lion
Sure.
skeletons. I've never, these are rarer. I think context is everything. Maybe depth, the depth of which you found it. Maybe you're digging for water.
Right. Yeah.
And then many feet down you find a skeleton where you generally don't find a dead lion skeleton way, way, way under the earth unless it's very old. Like maybe, there's that.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm just making that up, but that could be part of the context too.
It's cool that I think the article refers to them as sort of like, as a people that had an interest in like paleontology.
Yeah.
I just love that kind of stuff because it just reminds us that, I don't know, we have such a bias towards like highly modernized societies as being the only ones who knew anything or like who know anything or care about knowledge or cared about learning things. And it's like just not true.
Yeah,
Right.
we have this weird concept that only in the last like 150 years in the Western world was any actual like science done.
Yeah.
Which is just not the case at all. It's one of the reasons why people have such a problem looking at the pyramids or these ancient structures and the Aztec temples, that kind of stuff, and saying like, oh, well, they built them with methods. Like, how was that possible if you didn't have a crane? It's like, well, you had a bunch of people and you had a shitload of time. You had so much time that you weren't doing anything else.
I mean, ancient Mesopotamia was a wellspring of knowledge, scientifically, mathematically, everything, and people know this. This is not a secret. But I think the everyday layperson, when we think about scientific breakthroughs, we think about Western, modern, recent scientific breakthroughs when, the Greeks have been doing, they got math, man. Like they figured that shit out a long time ago. And so I think it's interesting. And it is true. Like the Sand People had a really big interest in fossils. It was
so cool.
It was their jam, and it's so cool. And I don't know. I love it. As somebody who spent their childhood digging in the dirt and finding bones and finding things and absolutely loving it, I greatly appreciate it.
Feel a connection to them.
Deeply, deeply so. I would just dig and dig and dig in my yard for fun. I
I'm
wanna play
sure
Indiana
your
Jones.
parents loved that.
They
for
did.
you.
They didn't give a shit. They
Oh,
did not care.
great.
It's awesome.
Did you ever find any dinosaur bones?
No, I didn't.
Okay. And in our last news item today, this is a bit of a weird one. So this website, Animals Around the Globe, reported that a coelacanth was sighted off the coast of California, but it didn't actually happen. So the coelacanth is one of the hallmarks of cryptozoology. This is a prehistoric fish, basically unchanged for the last 65 million years. It's that animal that everybody points to when they're talking about Nessie or Bigfoot or whatever, because if we have coelacanth and they can survive, maybe these other animals can survive too. Their habitat is typically temperate waters off the coast of Africa, but allegedly the coelacanth had been sighted now off of the California coast. The Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute and the Scripps Institution of Oceanography spotted one in an underwater canyon off San Diego, according to this article. That sighting allegedly stunned the observers, and the article quoted an unnamed marine biologist saying it's the equivalent of finding, quote, a T-Rex roaming the forest. That article got picked up by a lot of major news outlets, including CNN. But the thing is, it never happened. The skeptical writer Sharon Hill refutes the story. She points out that no names were given, and there were no sources of the discovery other than that Animals Around the Globe article. There was a similar article published in the Nature Scientific Reports. That sighting in that article was in Indonesia, not California. So Hill believes that this article was AI generated. That was why there are several factual errors in the article, like the location, no researchers involved, and it was just never fact-checked and corrected. The Scripps Institution actually responded on Twitter and said that the entire article was fake.
That's a big deal.
It's wild. Mm-hmm. I mean, with AI writing articles like this that are sort of scholarly articles, and then news outlets like CNN picking them up.
Yeah.
This is like the precipice of a new age of misinformation.
But it, for sure, 100%. But like, here's what I want to say. And her name was Sharon Hill, right? The skeptical writer.
Yeah.
She mentioned a bunch of this too. I had several thoughts. And I just like want to put these out there as things you might want to consider when you're reading an article and you might be feeling skeptical, or you want to be like reading and you're like, wow, this seems really fantastical. I wonder if this is true. Some things you can look for. One, the article was so long and had so many different subsections that actually didn't make sense as subsections in terms of thinking about like a research paper. So it was like trying to model like that, like talking about like scientific methods or whatever, but it was just repeating data. It's like it didn't have new things to say in each of the sections. The other thing that was interesting, Sharon Hill points it out, there's no numbers, there's no dates, there's no according to blah-de-blah. Like, it's all just words. Also, when it does mention things, they don't make sense in referring back to themselves. So, for example, it says like, oh, this was reported, there was a press release, and there were like Zoom calls and like tons of people attended them. When were the calls? Because like an actual article would say like, they put out a press release on like, you know, June 7th, they put out a press release, they'd probably link to it. And they held calls that people could like attend. Okay. Like they would probably say when they held those calls, or like, and then on June 8th, they held a conference for press, for reporters. There are no specifics in the article. And so like, these are all things that when I was reading it, I was like, this is really circular and like it's not that it didn't make sense. It did. It's just like, when you start to feel weird when you're reading something, be skeptical of it. I hate the phrase do your own research because it's so tainted now, but like, give it a little Google. Give it a little Google and see what comes up. Like, that's what Sharon did. And she was like, the only thing that's coming up is this article. That's a red flag. There were lots of things in that article where I agree with you, Matt. Like, it was trying to sound scholarly, but like, it really wasn't. If you like scratch the surface at all, like in terms of what it was missing like anything below like a surface level phrasing that we associate with like scholarly articles. You know what I mean?
That's a really, really great point. There's a certain structure
to an article like that, where, like you said, you refer back to previous sections. It like builds on itself. It provides deeper information about a previous section as you go along. Whereas this was just sort of a bunch of disconnected things, one after another, and then it ended. Yeah.
It also just didn't make sense. Like, even when they were like, they fell into a stunned silence, like even when they were describing what happened throughout the process, it actually didn't make sense, because like some of the details that the article described, you wouldn't actually have had that detail if it had actually happened in the way that they had said that it had happened prior.
Right.
Who was there and when did it happen? How did it happen? And all that kind of thing. Like, they included details that you wouldn't actually know. And so, because they're making it up, obviously. So, or AI is making it up. But anyway, I just thought, like, sorry, I'm going on a little bit, but like, I actually kind of loved this article because it is AI slop and it is shit that we're going to need to like look out for, because this is going to keep happening like to an increasing degree. It also just recently happened. It was like on all the late night shows. A syndicated books to read this summer list went out.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And it was written by AI and it had a bunch of books that didn't exist on it. Yeah. And like nobody had bothered to fact check it. It was like it was like books by authors that like, they were real authors. Like Britt Bennett, for example, was one of the authors. And it was like the new book by Britt Bennett. And like that book, Britt Bennett has never written the book that this AI paragraph is describing. So like it, and I think it also described a new book by someone who was dead. Like it was, so like
EJ, here's your chance.
I know.
Just go on the list, find a book that doesn't exist and write that book. Everybody's going to be looking for it.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm. I loved this article for that. I think and also of what like we try to do in this podcast, which is thinking about how to think critically. And this article is a really good example of something that on the surface looks like it might be legitimate, but right below the surface, it's very easily shown to not be legitimate, and it has lots of red flags in it. And I just wanted to raise that because I got kind of excited because I was like, ooh, that's wrong. That's wrong. That's wrong. Like,
yeah, it is a great point. Anytime you can, try to go to the original source every time. And if you're reading the original source, then there are a bunch of things that you can look for like that. And, you know, what is that original source? An article that is originally sourced in Nature or something like that is, you know, I feel like most of the time we can trust that coming out. An article that has an original source in the Daily Mail, maybe not so much.
People that you know are employing fact checkers.
Yes,
you can probably trust that more than you can trust something that you don't know if they're employing fact checkers.
What disturbed me a little bit was when I was reading the article, I came across Sharon's rebuttal of it, and I became skeptical of her skepticism for a second, because when I looked up, I Googled California coelacanth fake, she was literally the only one writing about it. And that kind of made me upset. Now, maybe this has changed since, but
well, yes,
this was before Scripps came out.
Since then, the Scripps tweet came out. Yeah.
But in those days following the article, I couldn't find anybody else talking about it as if it was not true. All I got was a bunch of more articles saying it was true.
But I think that that's a healthy response for you. I think you're better off being skeptical of everything and then using rationality to conclude from there, especially in the absence of good data.
Yes, I mean, I agree with you. I guess my point is that it's sad to me that this is where we're at right now, where we have one person that's calling this out that I can find, at least on Google, you know, amidst a sea of people spreading the information. So
yeah. I didn't like that they didn't link to things in the article. Yeah. Like, another thing that you might do if you were a publication, you would link to those websites, or you would link to the mission that they were going on. Like, you would just link. you would link and didn't link to anything.
I think it's an unfortunate side effect of the way that media is presented and the way that we consume media today, where a lot of it is it's a little bit like candy. We get an article, we go through the article, it's completely gone. It's scrolling culture, right? We're scrolling through USA Today or New York Times or whatever, just going past an article, you flip through it, you read a couple paragraphs, you move on. You flip through it, you read a couple paragraphs, move on. And so these institutions need articles to keep people engaged. And so they just pump out everything constantly. And when something like this comes across the page, then CNN says, okay, cool, we'll just throw that into the queue. People breeze by it, they take that away, and that's all. That's all there is. But we're not doing the in-depth fact checking that we used to. We're not doing the long, well-researched reporting that we used to in a lot of these kinds of cases. And so it's just people feeding off and articles feeding off each other.
Yeah. I mean, I want to stand up for media. There are some places that are doing
for sure.
long-form journalism.
For sure. Yes. Yes.
That is like really good and important. And short-form journalism. I mean, Substack, right? I think Substack is an example where there are probably non-trustworthy people on there, but there are also people on there that are doing really good work. And I think there are new media people who are doing good work, podcasters, things like that. But to your point, Matt, I also think it's not just on like media websites where the scrolling, or even if you're on their social media or whatever, there are so many like news or like influencers, like who, whether they're trying to talk about political news or they're just talking about shit that's like happening in the world, you're scrolling through and you're seeing stuff on the internet you don't actually know. Like if this person has done the research, like where they're getting their information from. Oftentimes they're not linking, or even if they are, you're not looking and clicking, right? You're just like seeing it and then it's in your brain and it's like something you know. But do you? Like, because you didn't even look. And like, I'm guilty of this. I follow lots of like cool sort of like history accounts on TikTok and Instagram and things like that. And like, they all seem pretty serious and above board and like they're trying to source their information, because I do often look at the captions and like see, oh, where are they saying that this is coming from? But like, I don't know, you know? And it makes a really difficult environment to like check your information, because you're also getting so much information all the time that you're just like, oh, I just like heard this thing. Where'd you hear it? You don't remember. Could have been the New York Times, could have been some random person on Instagram, you know?
Yeah, very true.
And then it just becomes in your zeitgeist and it becomes a fact that you know. And all of a sudden, alien bodies and underground bases in the middle of the desert, you know?
Yep.
That's why we do what we do.
Yes.
We're trying, not even just to help stem the tide of this, but also, I think more importantly, teach those critical thinking skills through the process of talking about this stuff. Because it's a great little sandbox where we can play and have conversations like this about how do you assess an article, how do you assess a news source, how do you decide if something's true or not in a fun environment.
Like war games.
While talking about Annabelle. Like war games, yes.
Exactly.
The slaying monsters war games.
Yeah. And I'm still very much learning how to critically think. You know, as somebody that was raised to not critically think, we're getting there.
We all are. We all have our blinders, and we all make mistakes and stuff too. For
You're
sure.
never like not learning how to critically think. I mean, that's the point, right? Because you don't know everything and you're learning new things. You're encountering new information. The way that information is coming to you is changing. So like you have to rethink how you assess it. Cause like the way you assess different forms of information is like different for each form, right? Like because of my past, like I know how to read an academic article and say like, does this seem serious or not? Maybe I do know, maybe I don't know, but I can look for like signs, telltale signs of things. But like, you show me a scientific paper, like I know generally what form it's supposed to be in and like what kinds of information should be in there. But like, I don't know what you're telling me. Like, I don't understand it.
Sure.
So like you can say things and I'm like, this seems right. Yeah. But I don't know, like I don't really know.
Yeah.
And so like, I think that like we also need to give ourselves a lot of grace. Like everyone's always learning how to think critically. I think it's more of like what you said, Matt, like just remembering to be skeptical and not in a pessimistic way necessarily. Just be like, what am I reading?
You can be curious.
Curious. Yeah. I like that.
That's our last article.
All right.
Yeah.
There we go. We rounded them up.
Yeah. That's our May
Yeehaw.
Fortean Roundup. Yeehaw.
Happy May.
Yeah.
Happy May. It's cold ass fucking weird May.
Yeah, it's been a little strange. So awesome.
Nice.
When this comes out, we are just about to transition into a new series. Going to be a lot of fun. So stick around for that. Thank you all so much for listening to us, for following along in this journey. As always, if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, if you saw any awesome news items that you think we should cover on next month's Fortean Roundup, you can email us at slayingmonsterspodcast@gmail.com. If you are feeling generous, you can always head over to slayingmonsterspodcast.com. Click on the support us button at the top of the page that links to a couple different ways you can become a member of our site. You can give a one-time donation. And if you feel like being a little stylish, we also have a merch store there too. Check that out.
Gettysburg, go with God in July. Good luck.
Yeah. Good luck, Gettysburg. Watch out for
out.
Annabelle.
Be
She's
careful.
coming for you.
Yep, she's coming.
Oh my God.
All right. Be safe out there.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Slaying Monsters, the Fortean History Podcast. If you like the podcast, there's a couple ways you can show your support. You can tell your friends, you can leave us a rating and review on your podcast platform, or you can head over to slayingmonsterspodcast.com and click on the Support Us button to leave a donation. For questions, suggestions, and other feedback, reach out to us, slayingmonsterspodcast@gmail.com, and stay up to date by following us on socials at Slaying Monsters Podcast. Your support helps us grow, and we are truly grateful to have our listeners and community.